My mom made us pretend to be conjoined twins. It all started when we were 6, and my mom saw conjoined twins on the news. She looked at my identical twin Anna and I and said, "If you two had just been born all twisted up, I could have been rich." Then her eyes lit up. That was the beginning of the end. 3 days later, Mom called us into her sewing room. She held up these matching pink outfits she'd sewn together at the sides. "Put these on," she said. Anna and I squeezed into them and could barely walk without tripping. Mom clapped her hands together. "Perfect. Now walk to the door and back." We stumbled across the room while she filmed on her phone. Anna rolled her eyes at me when we fell for the 3rd time. We both wanted to rip the stupid outfit off, but Mom's face had that look that meant we better not argue. She made us wear those connected clothes every day, but that wasn't enough. Soon, Mom started gluing patches of our skin together at the hip and ribs every morning before breakfast. "Hold still," she'd say, while pressing our skin together until it bonded. "You need to look authentic." The glue burned and pulled whenever we moved wrong. Anna would pick at the edges when Mom wasn't looking. She hated it as much as I did. The worst part was showering. Mom made us wear swimsuits and shower together to maintain the illusion, even though the water made the glue sting like crazy. Mom coached us for hours on our backstory. We supposedly shared a liver and some intestines. Doctors said we'd die if separated. She made us practice crying about our condition in the mirror. "More tears," she'd demand. "Think about never being able to be apart. Think about dying." Anna was terrible at fake crying at first. Mom would scream at her to try harder. Eventually she got the hang of it, but she'd always make faces at me in the mirror when Mom turned away. She'd cross her eyes or stick out her tongue, and I'd have to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. Our first gig was at this medical oddities convention in a hotel ballroom. Mom charged $50 for photos. People would come up and touch where we were connected and ask if it hurt. One creepy guy asked if we had to consummate relationships together when we got older. Anna would say our practiced lines in this dead monotone voice that made Mom pinch her arm between photos. "Smile more," Mom hissed. "You're ruining everything." Anna plastered on the fakest smile I'd ever seen. We both counted down the minutes until we could go home. The money was insane. Mom booked us on morning shows and medical documentaries. We had to sit there while hosts asked invasive questions about using the bathroom and dating. Mom would dab her eyes and talk about her brave special girls. During one interview, Anna grabbed my hand when they asked about our future. Probably just staying in character, but her palm was sweaty like she was actually nervous about something. The host kept pushing about whether we'd want families someday, and Anna's grip got tighter and tighter until I thought she might break my fingers. At night, we'd lie in our separate beds and complain about how much our skin hurt from the glue. Anna had this whole routine of putting aloe vera on the red marks. "I'm gonna have scars forever," she'd say. We'd fantasize about running away once we turned 18. I told her my plan one night. "I'll go to New York and you go to LA, as far apart as possible." Anna just hummed and changed the subject to something else. We lasted 8 months before it all went to hell. We were at this charity gala for children with rare medical conditions. A real pediatric surgeon came up for a photo. He stared at where we were connected and frowned. "Interesting," he said. "Your connection point seems to have migrated since your appearance on Channel 7. Mom tried to hustle us away, but he followed. Called security. Made a huge scene about medical fraud and stolen donations. The whole ballroom was staring and whispering and taking photos of us being exposed as frauds. Mom drove home doing 90 on the freeway. Anna stared out the window, not saying anything. Mom locked us in our room when we got home. We could hear her on the phone all night, first screaming at someone, then switching to this sweet, begging voice. "We're so screwed," I said. Anna just sat on her bed picking at her nails. "Maybe it's finally over," I said hopefully. Anna didn't answer, which was weird, but I figured she was just scared of what Mom would do to us. The next morning, Mom sat us down on our bed. We were still glued from yesterday, and my skin was raw and bleeding where I'd tried to pick at it. "I found a solution," she said. Her eyes had that dangerous shine that meant something horrible was coming. "There's a surgeon in Mexico who specializes in unique procedures. He can make you girls into what you were always meant to be. Real conjoined twins. Permanent, beautiful. No one will ever call you frauds again." I felt like I was drowning. My hands started shaking and I couldn't breathe. But Anna grabbed Mom's hands and tears started rolling down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for keeping us together." She turned to me with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "We'll never have to be apart. Isn't that perfect? We'll never be alone again." Mom smiled back at her, and I realized with absolute horror that my sister wasn't crying from fear at all. Anna squeezed my hand, and her palm was warm and damp like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. She leaned close and whispered that the surgery would make everything perfect, like we were always meant to be, and her breath smelled like the mint gum Mom gave us after meals. Mom watched us with wet eyes and said we'd leave for Mexico in 3 days, that she'd already wired half the payment to the clinic. The number hit me like cold water. 3 days. 72 hours until someone cut us together forever. My throat closed up and I couldn't make words come out, just nodded while my sister smiled at me like I'd finally agreed to something beautiful. Mom clapped her hands once and left the room, and I heard the lock click from the outside. I sat on my bed and started checking every place where yesterday's glue tore my skin when I tried to pick it off. The raw patches on my ribs were the worst. Weeping clear fluid that stuck to my shirt and made the fabric cling. My hip had 3 spots that looked like burns, the edges pink and angry. Anna hummed while she put aloe on her own marks, completely calm, like we were just doing our normal routine. She smoothed the gel over her skin in small circles, and I watched her face stay relaxed and content. That's when it really hit me. Mom's plan wasn't just a threat anymore. It was a countdown to something I couldn't undo, and my sister was counting down with joy instead of fear. Mom came back an hour later with our phones in her hands. She held them up and announced she was keeping them for the planning phase so we could focus on preparing. She put them in her purse, and I watched my last connection to the outside world disappear into that black leather bag. Anna didn't even look up from her book. Like losing our phones was nothing. Just another normal thing. I felt the walls getting smaller. The bedroom window had bars we'd never questioned before. The door locked from the outside. Even our phones were gone now. Every piece of the world beyond this room was being cut away. At lunch, Anna thanked Mom again for making us whole, her voice shaky with emotion. She called it our destiny to never be separated and reached across the table to squeeze Mom's hand. I pushed food around my plate while they talked about how honest our lives would finally be. No more pretending. No more glue that came off at night. The word destiny made me want to scream because Anna really believed this. She really wanted someone to cut us together permanently. I looked at my twin sister and didn't recognize her anymore. Same face as mine, but completely different person inside. While Mom did laundry, I tested the door hinges with my fingernail. One screw on the bottom hinge was slightly loose, wiggling when I pressed it. I moved to the bathroom and checked the window, measuring it with my eyes. Big enough to squeeze through if I removed the screen. I memorized which floorboards creaked on my way back. The third board from the bathroom door, the one next to Anna's bed. I saw Mom's car keys sitting on the hall table through the crack in the door. These tiny observations felt like the only power I had left. Small pieces of information I was collecting like weapons. Mom returned with printed forms she called consent paperwork. She spread them across the kitchen table, her fingers smoothing out the wrinkles. She explained in this weirdly gentle voice how the clinic specialized in unique body modifications and clinical beauty. She stroked Anna's hair while she talked about the surgery creating something precious and rare. Anna leaned into Mom's hand like a cat being petted. The tenderness in Mom's voice made my skin crawl worse than her anger ever did. When she was angry, I knew where I stood. This soft, loving voice felt like poison wrapped in sugar. I found a safety pin in the bathroom drawer and hid it in my sock, then used the mirror to check that it didn't show. The metal was cold against my ankle. When Mom showered, I snuck to the router in the hall closet and memorized the Wi-Fi password printed on the bottom. Each small act of preparation felt like holding my breath underwater, knowing I'd have to surface eventually. The pin pressed against my skin with every step. The password repeated in my head like a prayer. Mom pulled out our birth certificates and passports from her filing cabinet and stacked them on the counter. She talked about border crossing timing and how we'd say we were going for specialized medical treatment if anyone asked. She had hotel reservations printed with confirmation numbers highlighted in yellow. A route mapped with rest stops marked in red pen. She'd planned everything down to which gas stations we'd use. Watching her organize our trip like a normal vacation made everything feel horribly real and close. This wasn't just talk anymore. She had paperwork and reservations and a route. That night, I whispered to Anna about our old plan to run away at 18, to go to different cities and finally live separately. She rolled over to face me in the dark, and I could see her eyes reflecting the streetlight from outside. She said she didn't want separate futures anymore, that being apart sounded lonely and wrong. I asked if she remembered wanting her own life, and she said she grew up and realized we're better together. Her voice was calm and sure, like she'd been thinking about this for years. Anna kept talking in the dark. She said the surgery would end all the lying and performing, that we could just be ourselves without glue and costumes. She called it honesty at last and said she was tired of the fake version when we could have the real thing. I lay there listening and realized she'd reframed permanent mutilation as authenticity. My sister's logic had twisted into something I couldn't reach or fix. She saw surgical fusion as truth and our separate bodies as the lie. I spent the rest of that day trying to remember anything about the surgeon who exposed us at the charity gala. His face kept coming back to me, the way he'd frowned at our connection point and asked those careful questions. I couldn't pull his name from my memory, but I knew he worked at a children's hospital somewhere downtown. If I could find him, if I could get a message out somehow, maybe he'd help again. He'd seen through Mom's performance once. Maybe he'd see through it again. The thought felt like the only solid thing I could hold on to while Mom and Anna planned my permanent mutilation in the next room. Mom made us shower together that night with the bathroom door open so she could supervise. The water ran loud and the exhaust fan rattled, and I realized the noise might cover other sounds. Mom's phone sat on the counter where she'd left it while she helped Anna adjust the water temperature. I grabbed it fast and ducked behind the shower curtain, using the fan noise to hide the clicking sounds. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped it twice. I opened her news alerts and scrolled back through weeks of saved articles about the charity gala scandal. There it was. Dr. Rena Murphy at Children's Medical Center. I repeated the name in my head over and over while I cleared the search history. Dr. Rena Murphy, Children's Medical Center. Dr. Rena Murphy. I put the phone back exactly where Mom had left it and got back under the water before she noticed anything wrong. After the shower, I grabbed toilet paper from under the sink and tore off a small strip. I found my eyeliner in the cabinet and wrote, Dr. Rena Murphy Children's Medical in letters so tiny I could barely read them. I folded the paper smaller and smaller until it was the size of a pill, then tucked it inside my bra while Mom dried Anna's hair in the other room. The paper pressed against my skin and felt like it was burning me. This tiny, dangerous secret that could save me or get me killed. I flushed the toilet twice to cover any sounds, and walked back to the bedroom trying to keep my face blank and normal. At dinner, Mom described the interview she was planning for after the surgery. She acted out the whole thing right there at the table, playing both the interviewer and herself. She'd ask a question in a high professional voice and then answer it in her own voice with fake tears rolling down her face. She talked about explaining our brave choice to live as we were meant to be, how she'd described the moment we decided to become our true selves. Anna watched her with this look of total admiration while Mom performed her fantasy. I forced myself to nod and smile at the right moments. The chicken on my plate tasted like sand, and I could feel bile rising in my throat, but I kept chewing and swallowing because showing disgust would give me away. Mom got up to move a laundry basket from the hallway, and I saw our passports sitting on the hall table in a stack of papers. I didn't think. I just grabbed them while her back was turned and shoved them down my shirt, then slipped into the bedroom. My heart pounded so loud I was sure everyone in the house could hear it. I dropped to my knees and pried up the heating vent cover behind my bed. I shoved the passports deep inside behind the dust and old receipts, then pressed the cover back into place. Mom kept folding towels in the hallway like nothing had happened. I sat on my bed and tried to breathe normally while my pulse hammered in my ears. Anna came in a few minutes later and caught me staring at the vent. She asked what I was thinking about with this searching look on her face. She studied my expression like she was reading a mirror that was showing her something wrong, some crack in our identical reflection. I said I was just nervous about the trip, that I was scared of the surgery. She kept watching me for another long moment and I could see her trying to figure out if I was lying. Finally, she turned away and started getting ready for bed. I exhaled slowly and reminded myself to be more careful. Mom left her phone on the counter again when she went to check the mail. I grabbed it and locked myself in the bathroom, opening the notes app with shaking fingers. I typed out everything. Who we were, what Mom was planning, our address, the Mexico timeline, that we needed help. I included Dr. Murphy's name so she'd know I was the one writing. The words sat there on the screen like a loaded gun I hadn't fired yet. I saved it as a draft instead of sending because I needed to figure out how to get it out without Mom seeing it in her sent messages. But it was written now. It existed. That felt like something. That night I lay in bed and remembered all the times Anna had whispered we're perfect together during our practice sessions. How she'd squeeze my hand during interviews when I started to crack. I used to think she was just being supportive, helping us survive Mom's scheme together. Now I realized she'd meant every single word. She'd been building this fantasy of permanent fusion for years while I dreamed of escape. Every time she'd said we were meant to be together, she'd actually believed it. Every time she'd held my hand, she'd been imagining a future where we could never let go. I'd been sleeping 3 feet away from someone whose deepest wish was to trap me inside her body forever. I woke up the next morning to the sound of drilling. Mom was installing a baby monitor camera on our dresser, angling it to cover both beds. She said it was for night safety in case we needed her, but I could see the real reason in her eyes. She sensed me pulling away. She knew something had shifted. Anna waved at the camera and made a joke about being reality TV stars. She seemed completely unbothered by another layer of surveillance. I waved too and smiled and acted like it was funny, but I was calculating camera angles and blind spots in my head, figuring out where I could move without being watched. The school called Mom's phone later that morning, and I heard her through the wall lying in this smooth, calm voice. She told them we were recovering from preliminary procedures for our condition, that we'd be back soon with medical documentation. The attendance clerk sounded concerned and asked more questions. For just a second, I felt this tiny spark of hope that someone outside our house actually cared we were missing. But Mom promised to send paperwork and the clerk accepted it. I heard her hang up and knew that door had closed. No one was coming to check on us. No one was going to save me unless I saved myself. I waited until Mom was in the shower the next morning and grabbed a makeup wipe from the bathroom trash. My hands shook as I pulled out Anna's black eyeliner from the drawer and wrote HELP in tiny letters on the back of the wipe. I added our address underneath in numbers so small I could barely read them. The library book Mom had checked out 3 weeks ago sat on the hall table with a due date stamp showing it was overdue. I slid the makeup wipe between pages in the middle where someone might actually see it when they processed the return. Maybe a librarian would find it and call someone. Maybe they'd just throw it away. I was collecting desperate moves like bullets in a gun I didn't know how to fire. Anna came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, and I shoved the book back on the table before she could see what I was doing. She walked past me into our bedroom without saying anything, but her eyes followed me in a way that made my skin crawl. I waited until she went to get dressed, and then I saw her journal sitting open on her bed. The page was covered in her handwriting, and I knew I shouldn't read it, but I couldn't stop myself from looking. The entry was dated yesterday, and it said, "If we're one body, I can keep her forever," in letters that got bigger and darker as the sentence went on. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up right there on the carpet. This wasn't about Mom's control anymore. Anna wanted to own me too. She wanted to make sure I could never leave her, never have my own life, never exist as anything except half of her. I closed the journal and backed away from it like it had teeth. My twin sister, who I'd shared a room with for my entire life, wanted to trap me inside her body forever, and she thought that was love. I heard Mom's footsteps in the hallway, and I sat down on my bed trying to look normal even though my hands were shaking. Mom walked past our door carrying her laptop and I saw her go into the kitchen. 5 minutes later, I heard her on a phone call in the living room, and I crept down the hall to where she'd left the laptop open on the counter. The screen showed her bank account with a transaction list pulled up. Right there in black and white, I saw a transfer from something called medical fund donations into her personal checking account. $15,000. Then another one for $8,000. Then another for $12,000. She was stealing money that people had donated to help us. Money they thought was going to our medical care, and moving it straight into her own account to pay for the nightmare surgery in Mexico. I memorized the account numbers and dates as fast as I could. The routing number. The transaction IDs. Everything I could fit in my brain before Mom came back. I heard her footsteps, and I was back in the hallway before she rounded the corner. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I had proof now. Real proof of theft and fraud that I could tell someone if I ever got the chance. Mom's voice drifted from the living room as she talked to someone on the phone. I waited until she was deep in conversation, and then I went to our bedroom and knelt down by the heating vent behind my bed. I used my fingernails to carefully pry up the metal cover without making noise. The passports were still there in the dust and old receipts where I'd hidden them. Seeing them gave me this tiny burst of control like I'd stolen one piece off Mom's game board. She couldn't take us to Mexico without these. She'd have to find them first. I pressed the cover back into place and made sure it looked exactly like it had before. Anna was watching me from her bed when I turned around. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were narrow and suspicious. I pretended I'd been looking for something I dropped and went to the bathroom. Mom's phone sat on the counter where she'd left it while she showered. I grabbed it and pulled up the drafted email to Dr. Murphy that I'd written days ago. My hands shook so badly I could barely type. I attached the photo I'd taken of my glued skin with the timestamp showing from 2 days ago. The burns were clear in the picture. The torn skin where I'd tried to pick the adhesive off. The red marks that would probably scar forever. I hit send and watched the message disappear into the outbox. Then I immediately went to sent messages and deleted it. Cleared the trash folder. Cleared the recently deleted folder. Wiped every trace that the email had ever existed from Mom's phone. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone twice. I had to sit on the bathroom floor for 5 minutes afterward just to stop hyperventilating. The message was out there now. Dr. Murphy would see it. Someone would know what was happening to us. I just had to hope she'd respond before Mom dragged us across the border. I went back to our bedroom and lay down on my bed trying to look calm. Mom's voice carried from the kitchen where she'd left her phone on speaker. She was arguing with someone about payment terms for the procedure. Her voice went from sweet to angry to begging, and back to sweet again. She haggled over whether they'd accept cash, how much of a deposit they needed up front, whether they could do the surgery sooner if she paid more. The way she talked about cutting into us was so casual and businesslike, like she was buying a used car instead of planning to permanently fuse her daughters together. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled just to have something to focus on besides her voice. Anna came into the bathroom while I was washing my hands, and she closed the door behind her. Her voice was low and urgent when she asked where the passports were. I lied and said I hadn't seen them, that Mom probably moved them somewhere safe for the trip. Anna stared at me hard for a long moment. She said she knew I was hiding something, that twins can't lie to each other, that she could always tell when I wasn't being honest. I stared back at her and realized we weren't really twins anymore, not in any way that actually mattered. She wanted to be cut open and sewn to me forever. I wanted to run as far away as possible. We were strangers who just happened to share DNA and a face. She had a tape measure and a black Sharpie in her hands. She measured our heights and marked our hips with the marker, drew lines across our ribs where she said the connection points would be. She narrated each step in this weird, calm voice like she was a surgeon instead of our mother planning our mutilation. She explained how they'd need to match our spines, how they'd fuse our pelvic bones together, how the scarring would be significant but beautiful in its own way. I felt the marker dragging across my skin, leaving black lines, and I wanted to throw up. Anna stood perfectly still and let Mom mark her up like a diagram. I grabbed a page from my homework notebook when Mom finally let us go back to our room. I wrote "Call CPS" in big letters with our address underneath. Then I added Mexico surgery in 2 days at the bottom. I folded the paper as small as I could get it and waited until Mom took the kitchen trash bag to the curb that night. I shoved it deep into the bag under coffee grounds and food scraps. It was a stupid long shot, but garbage collectors were people. People sometimes looked at weird things they found in the trash. I was throwing messages and bottles everywhere I could reach. Mom's laptop pinged with a notification while she was making dinner. I saw the screen light up from across the kitchen. An auto reply from Dr. Murphy's email saying she'd received my message and would respond within 24 hours. The message appeared in the spam folder instead of the inbox. I walked past the laptop like I was getting water and quickly marked the message as read, so Mom wouldn't notice the notification. Then I went back to setting the table with my heart racing. The proof that my message got out made me feel dizzy with relief and terror mixed together. Someone knew now. Someone official who could help. But I didn't know if they'd respond in time or if Mom would find out I'd sent it. I just had to wait and hope and keep throwing my desperate messages into the void. The next afternoon, Anna walks into the kitchen where Mom is checking her phone and holds up her own screen showing a Facebook post from someone named Jennifer, who donated $300 to our medical fund. The post says Mom is a fraud and a scammer who used fake sick kids to steal money. The comments underneath are multiplying while I watch from the doorway. People are tagging other donors and demanding refunds. Someone posted a screenshot from the charity gala showing the pediatric surgeon confronting us. Mom's face goes completely white, and then floods red like someone turned on a faucet. She grabs Anna's phone and starts frantically deleting our social media accounts, blocking people, reporting posts for harassment. Her fingers fly across the screen and she's muttering under her breath about jealous liars trying to ruin everything. Anna watches Mom's panic with this calm expression that makes my stomach hurt. I stand there feeling split between hoping this exposure stops Mom's Mexico plan and terrified it'll just make her run faster before anyone can actually help us. Mom throws Anna's phone on the counter and announces we're going dark online. No more social media, no more public presence until this blows over. She's breathing hard and her hands are shaking, but her voice has that dangerous edge that means she's already planning her next move. That night, I'm lying in bed pretending to sleep when I hear Mom tearing through the house looking for our passports. Drawers slam open in the kitchen and papers scatter across the floor. She's in the hallway closet throwing shoeboxes and old coats onto the ground. Her voice gets higher and sharper as she searches, calling out to herself about where she put them, where they could be. I keep my eyes closed and my breathing steady, but my heart is trying to break through my ribs. Anna is in her bed across the room and I can feel her watching me even though I can't see her in the dark. She knows I took them. She's been tracking everything I do, every small act of resistance, and now she's just waiting to see what I'll do. Mom moves to her bedroom and I hear things breaking. Glass shatters against a wall. Something heavy hits the floor. She's destroying her own room looking for those passports, and I'm frozen in bed with my face blank and confused like I have no idea what she's searching for. Anna's breathing pattern doesn't change. She just lies there in the darkness watching me keep my secret, and the knowing silence between us feels worse than any of Mom's screaming. The next morning, Anna gets out of bed and walks calmly to the heating vent beside my dresser. She doesn't say anything to me or look at Mom. She just kneels down and removes the metal cover with her bare hands, reaches into the dusty space behind it and pulls out our passports. She stands up and hands them to Mom without a single word. Then she turns and looks at me with this expression that's half pity and half triumph, like she's sorry I tried but glad I failed. I realize she's been watching me for days, tracking every movement I made, every place I looked, every time I acted suspicious. She saw me hide them and she waited until the perfect moment to expose me. She chose Mom's plan over my escape. She chose permanent fusion over my freedom. The betrayal cuts deeper than any of Mom's glue ever did, because this isn't Mom controlling us anymore. This is my identical twin deciding that trapping me forever is worth it if it means she gets what she wants. Mom takes the passports and her whole face lights up with relief and something darker. She looks at me and I see her putting together what happened, that I tried to sabotage her, that I'm not on board with this plan at all. She doesn't yell or hit me. She just smiles this tight smile and says we're leaving tonight instead of tomorrow, that she's moving up the timeline. Anna nods like that's perfectly reasonable, and I feel the walls closing in. 2 police officers knock on the door an hour later, and Mom transforms instantly. Her voice goes soft and concerned, and she invites them in with this worried mother expression on her face. She explains we're homeschooled because of our medical condition, that we need special accommodations. The officers ask to see us, and Mom leads them to our room where Anna and I are sitting on our beds. They ask if we're okay, and if anyone is hurting us. Anna and I have been coached so many times that we fall into our script automatically. Yes, we're fine. Yes, we're homeschooled. Yes, we have a rare medical condition that requires special care. No one is hurting us. Mom is taking good care of us. The words come out of my mouth without me even thinking about them, like I'm a robot programmed to lie to anyone who asks. The officers look uncomfortable, but they can't find anything wrong. Our room is clean. We're dressed and fed. We answer all their questions correctly. They give Mom a card with a number to call if we need help, and then they leave. I watch them walk back to their car from the window and realize I'm too well trained to break character, even when rescue is standing right there in front of me. Anna squeezes my hand after they're gone, and it feels like a warning instead of comfort. After the police leave, I wait until Mom goes to the bathroom and then I check her spam folder again on her laptop. There's a full response from Dr. Murphy with a timestamp from this morning. The email says she's forwarding my message to CPS and asking if we're in immediate danger. She includes her direct hospital number and writes that she remembers us from the charity gala, that she's been worried about us since the exposure happened. She says someone official will be reaching out within the next day or two to check on our safety. I take a screenshot on Mom's phone as fast as I can, and then delete the email from the spam folder and clear the trash so Mom won't see it. My hands are shaking. So badly I can barely work the touchscreen. For the first time in days, I feel like maybe I'm not completely alone in this. Someone with authority knows what's happening. Someone is actually coming to help. The validation makes me feel dizzy and the terror makes me feel sick. But underneath both of those feelings is this tiny spark of hope that maybe my desperate messages actually reached someone who can stop this. Anna sits on my bed that night after Mom goes to sleep and looks at me with this intense expression. Her voice comes out low and desperate when she says, "Don't blow this for me. Not for us. For her." She tells me she's thought about being permanently connected since she was 8 years old. She says it's all she's ever really wanted. I ask her why, and she explains that being apart feels like missing a limb, like half of her is always gone. She describes this ache she's had her whole life whenever we're in separate rooms or doing separate activities. She says the surgery would finally make her feel whole and complete. I stare at my identical twin and realize her need to fuse isn't Mom's sickness. It's her own. Anna has wanted this for years, and Mom's plan just gave her permission to admit it out loud. She asks me to understand, to see how perfect we could be together, to stop fighting what we're meant to be. I tell her I can't do that that I need to be my own person, that being cut open and sewn together would destroy me. She looks at me like I'm the broken one, like my need for separation is the real problem. We sit there in silence for a long time, and I realize we're not really twins anymore in any way that actually matters. We're strangers who happen to share DNA and a face and a room. Mom packs a duffel bag after Anna goes back to her bed. I watch through the crack in our door as she fills it with medical supplies from the bathroom cabinet. Adhesive bottles, gauze rolls, bandages, bottles of pills I don't recognize. She adds thick stacks of cash wrapped in rubber bands from her bedroom safe. The money makes soft thudding sounds as it hits the bottom of the bag. She checks her phone and writes something down on a piece of paper, then folds the paper and puts it in her pocket. She comes to our door and tells us to sleep in our clothes because we're leaving at 4 in the morning before the next CPS visit can happen. She says we need to be ready to walk out the door in 60 seconds if necessary. Anna nods and changes into jeans and a sweatshirt. I do the same because refusing would just make Mom watch me closer. I lie in bed fully dressed with my shoes next to the mattress, staring at the ceiling and counting down the hours until I either escape or disappear forever into whatever Mom has planned. The clock on the wall ticks so loud it sounds like hammering. Every minute that passes is 1 minute closer to Mexico and permanent fusion and losing myself completely. While Mom takes a shower, I slip into the bathroom and quietly unscrew the toilet tank lid. My hands are sweating and the porcelain is heavy and cold. I pull out the note I wrote earlier on a scrap of paper towel. I've written Dr. Murphy's name, our names, and our address in thick black Sharpie letters. I tape the note to the inside of the tank lid where it won't get wet, then carefully lower the lid back into place. If CPS comes back and searches the house thoroughly, they might find it. It's stupid and desperate, but I'm completely out of good options, so I'm taking every bad option I can find. I flush the toilet to cover any sounds and wash my hands and walk back to our room like nothing happened. Mom is still in the shower singing softly to herself. The sound makes my skin crawl because she's happy about tomorrow, excited about taking us to Mexico, thrilled about making her fantasy real. I climb back into bed and pull the covers up and try to slow my racing heart. At 3 in the morning, Mom's phone lights up on her nightstand, and I can see the text preview from across the room because she left her door open. The message says mandatory reporter has been notified and CPS will attempt contact within 24 hours. Dr. Murphy followed through. Someone official knows what's happening and is coming to check on us. I feel this surge of validation that my email actually worked, that someone believed me, that help is really coming. But I also feel terror because now it's a race between rescue and Mom's ability to run. If we leave at 4 like Mom planned, we'll be gone before CPS arrives. If Mom gets us across the border, I don't know if anyone can stop the surgery from happening. The timeline is so tight I can barely breathe thinking about it. I watch the minutes tick by on the clock and try to calculate if 24 hours means today or tomorrow, if CPS will show up at 8 in the morning or 8 at night, if we'll still be here when they knock on the door. Mom bursts into our room at 3:30 in the morning and drags us out of bed. She's already dressed and her hair is pulled back tight. She grabs our arms and pulls us toward the car, throwing the duffel bag and 2 smaller bags into the trunk. The engine starts and we're peeling out of the driveway before I'm even fully awake. Anna sits quietly in the back seat next to me while I press my face to the window and memorize every street sign we pass. Oak Avenue, Maple Drive, Highway 101 South. I count the mile markers as we hit the highway heading toward the border. Marker 247, marker 251, marker 256. I'm tracking our route like breadcrumbs even though I don't know if anyone is following or if anyone will ever find this trail I'm leaving in my head. The sky is still dark and the highway is empty except for a few trucks. Mom drives fast with both hands tight on the wheel. Anna stares straight ahead with this peaceful expression on her face like we're going on vacation instead of running from the law. I keep my face pressed to the glass and watch the world fly by and wonder if this is the last time I'll ever see home. I stare at our license plate in the side mirror and burn the numbers into my brain. 7XJ4892. I say it over and over in my head while watching the mile markers fly past. Exit 267. Gas station with the broken sign. Billboard for a casino. Every detail gets filed away in case I get a chance to tell someone where we've been. The sun starts coming up and turns everything orange and I'm still cataloging landmarks. Water tower shaped like a mushroom. Rest stop with the blue roof. Bridge over a dried up riverbed. Mom's hands stay tight on the wheel and she doesn't look back at us once. Anna leans her head against the window with her eyes closed, but I know she's not sleeping because her fingers keep tapping against her leg. Exit 289. Town called Desert Springs. Another gas station. I'm building a map in my head of exactly how to get back home if I ever get the chance. The highway curves and I see a big green sign that says the border is 60 miles away, and my stomach twists because we're running out of road. Mom takes an exit near a cluster of buildings and pulls into a diner parking lot. The place is called Rosa's, and the sign out front says Exit 312. I memorize both while Mom parks the car. She turns around and looks at us with that fake sweet smile. She tells us we're going to eat breakfast, and if anyone asks, we're visiting family in Mexico for a wedding. She says we have a medical condition and we're very brave about it. Her voice sounds like honey, but her hand grips my arm hard enough to leave marks when she pulls me out of the car. Anna nods along to everything Mom says, and I keep my face blank while counting the cracks in the parking lot pavement. Inside the diner smells like coffee and bacon, and there's a waitress wiping down tables. Mom picks a booth in the back corner and slides in next to Anna, leaving me on the other side. The waitress comes over and Mom orders for all of us in this cheerful voice like we're a normal family on a normal trip. I look at the menu and see the diner's full name printed at the top. Rosa's Family Restaurant, Exit 312, Highway 78 South. I repeat it in my head while the waitress pours water. Mom leans across the table and tells us again what to say if Border Patrol stops us. We're visiting Aunt Carmen for her daughter's wedding. We have all our documentation. The doctor said travel is fine as long as we're careful. Her voice stays sweet, but her eyes are hard, and I can see the little muscle in her jaw jumping. Anna nods and says she understands, and Mom smiles at her. I nod too because I know better than to argue. The waitress brings our food, and I push eggs around my plate while Mom talks about the clinic and how nice the surgeon sounded on the phone. She says he does beautiful work and we're going to be so happy with the results. Anna cuts her pancakes into tiny pieces and eats them slowly while staring at nothing. I need to use the bathroom and Mom's eyes narrow when I ask, but she can't really say no in public. She tells Anna to go with me and I feel my chance slipping away, but I get up anyway. The bathroom is small and smells like fake flowers. Anna stands by the sinks while I go into the stall and I see the toilet paper dispenser mounted on the wall. I grab a paper napkin from my pocket that I took from the table and pull out the pen I stole from Mom's cup holder. My hands shake while I write our license plate number in tiny letters. 7XJ4892. Then I write Highway 78 South toward Mexico border. Then I write kidnapped by mother for surgery. The words look pathetic and small on the thin napkin, but I fold it up tight and shove it behind the toilet paper roll where someone cleaning might find it. It's stupid and desperate, but I'm leaving evidence everywhere I can because someone has to find something eventually. I flush and come out and wash my hands while Anna watches me in the mirror. Her face looks tired and sad, and I almost feel bad until I remember she wants this. She wants Mom to cut us together forever. We walk back to the table and I slide into the booth and Mom's already paid the check. Back at the table, Anna leans close to me and her voice comes out low and angry. She says the napkin thing is pathetic and I'm embarrassing myself with these stupid notes nobody will ever find. She asks me to choose us, to stop fighting what we're meant to be. I look at my identical twin and see someone I don't recognize anymore, someone who wants to trap me inside her body forever. I whisper back that I'd rather die separated than live as half of her. Her face goes white and then red and she turns away from me. Mom herds us back to the car and we drive for another 2 hours in complete silence. The landscape gets flatter and drier and the signs start showing distances in kilometers too. We pull off at a rundown motel with peeling paint and a sign that flickers. Mom pays cash at the front desk and gets a key to room 116. Inside there are 2 beds with ugly floral covers and a bathroom that smells like mold. Mom drops our bags on the floor and says she needs a shower. She disappears into the bathroom and I hear the water start running. Her camera bag sits on the dresser right next to the door and I stare at it. She's never left it unattended before. Not once in the past 3 days. I look at the door and then at Anna, who's sitting on one of the beds staring at her phone. This might be my only chance to do something before we cross the border and I lose any hope of rescue. I tell Anna I'm going to get ice and she doesn't even look up, just waves her hand. I slip out the door in my socks before she can stop me and run toward the lobby. My heart feels like it's trying to break through my chest and my hands won't stop shaking. The desk clerk looks startled when I come running up and ask to use the phone. She's an older woman with gray hair and she pushes the phone across the counter toward me. I dial 911 with fingers that barely work, and a woman's voice answers asking what my emergency is. I whisper our license plate number and the motel name and that my mother is trying to take us to Mexico for surgery we don't want. The dispatcher asks me to speak up and I force my voice louder while watching the hallway. She keeps me on the line and I can hear her typing really fast. She asks for my name and age and I tell her everything while the words tumble out too quick. The dispatcher asks if I'm in immediate danger and I say yes because we're leaving for the border as soon as Mom finishes her shower. She asks about injuries and I describe the glue burns and the scars and the months of being forced to pretend. She tells me police are already on the way, and her voice sounds calm and professional like this is just another day for her, but it's everything for me. I grip the phone so hard my knuckles turn white and the plastic creaks. She asks me to stay on the line, but I see movement in the hallway and I hang up fast. Anna stands in the doorway to the lobby and her face looks twisted with anger and something else I can't name. I try to walk past her toward the exit, but she grabs my arm and yanks me back. We struggle in the middle of the lobby and she's trying to drag me back to the room while I'm pulling toward the door. The adhesive residue still stuck to our skin from yesterday, tears open where we're connected, and I feel something warm and wet spreading across my side. Blood seeps through both our shirts where the half-healed glue burns split back open, and we're both crying and fighting in this gross motel lobby. The desk clerk stands up looking alarmed and reaches for her phone. Anna's nails dig into my arm and she's screaming that I'm ruining everything, that I'm destroying us. I scream back that there is no us anymore and try to wrench free. Mom comes running out of the room with wet hair and sees us covered in blood. She starts screaming that I'm hurting myself for attention, that I'm self-harming to sabotage the surgery. She tries to grab both of us and pull us back to the room, but the desk clerk has come around the counter now. The woman looks scared and confused and keeps her hand on the phone. Mom's voice switches instantly to that sweet tone, and she explains I'm having a mental health crisis, that I do this sometimes for attention. She says we have a rare medical condition, and the stress makes me act out. The clerk looks uncertain and glances between Mom's sweet face and the blood soaking through our shirts. I can see her trying to decide what's real and what's a lie. Then I hear sirens getting closer and Mom's face changes. Police cars pull into the parking lot with their lights flashing red and blue across the motel windows. Mom's expression goes from sweet to desperate to completely blank in about 3 seconds. Officers get out and walk toward the lobby, and one of them knocks hard on our room door, calling Mom's name. The lobby phone rings, and the desk clerk answers it and then looks at me. She says someone's asking for me by name and holds out the phone. I grab it, and the dispatcher asks if I'm okay, and I say yes. I'm here. I'm the one who called. Mom's whole face cracks like a mask falling off, and she just stands there while the officers come into the lobby. One of them sees the blood and calls for EMS, and another one separates Mom from us. Anna sinks down onto the floor, still holding her side and crying, and Mom just stares at me with this look I've never seen before, like she's finally realizing she's lost. One of the officers walks over and asks if I'm okay, and I nod even though I'm shaking so hard my teeth chatter. He guides me to a chair in the corner while his partner talks to Mom in this calm but firm voice. Another officer goes to check on Anna in our motel room, and I hear her crying through the walls, these high-pitched sobs that make my chest hurt. The ambulance pulls up outside, and 2 paramedics come in with their bags and equipment. A woman with her hair in a ponytail kneels down next to me and asks if she can look at my injuries. I lift up my shirt and show her the blood soaking through where Anna and I tore apart, the raw patches on my ribs and hip. She takes out her phone and starts photographing everything, asking me to turn this way and that way so she can get all the angles. The older scars from months of glue show up white and shiny against my skin, and she photographs those too, making notes on a tablet. From the room, I hear Anna screaming that I'm trying to cut her off from me, that I'm destroying us, that I want to ruin everything we could be together. The paramedic's face gets harder with every word Anna shouts, and she asks me how long this has been happening. I tell her 8 months of daily gluing, the performances, the money, the plan to make it permanent in Mexico. She writes it all down and calls her partner over to document Anna's injuries too. Mom keeps trying to explain to the officers that I'm mentally unstable, that I self-harm for attention, but they're not listening to her anymore. One officer is on his radio calling for CPS, and another is taking photos of the motel room, the duffel bag full of medical supplies and cash. They load me into the ambulance and take me to the hospital while Anna goes in a different ambulance. I watch through the back window as Mom stands in the parking lot with an officer, her hands moving while she talks, still trying to sell her story to someone who might believe her. At the hospital, an ER doctor with gray hair pulled back examines every inch of where Anna and I were connected. She uses this bright light to look at the burns and takes samples with cotton swabs, sealing them in little plastic tubes. Her questions are gentle but specific, asking exactly how Mom applied the glue, what kind it was, how often, whether it ever got infected. When I tell her 8 months, she closes her eyes for a second before writing it down in her chart. She photographs the tissue damage and the scarring, and explains that the adhesive caused second-degree burns in some places, that the repeated application prevented proper healing. A nurse comes in with papers for me to sign, giving permission for the photos to be used as evidence. The doctor tells me I did the right thing by calling for help, that what happened to me was abuse, and it's documented now in a way that can't be denied. She puts bandages on the worst spots and gives me cream for the burns. Through the curtain, I hear Anna in another exam room crying and telling her doctor that I'm lying, that Mom was helping us become our true selves. My doctor squeezes my shoulder and says she believes me, that the evidence is clear and undeniable. A police officer comes in to take my statement, and I go through the whole story again while he records it on his phone. Mom glued us together every day, made us perform, took all the money, planned surgery in Mexico to make it permanent. He nods and writes and asks follow-up questions about the timeline and the donations, and the surgeon who exposed us at the charity gala. CPS arrives at the hospital while I'm still in the exam room. A detective comes in first and explains that Mom is being detained for child endangerment and fraud, that she's being processed at the police station right now. Through the window, I see them leading Mom past in handcuffs, her wrists locked behind her back. She's still talking, her mouth moving constantly, insisting she was helping us become our true selves. Her voice carries through the hallway about destiny and authenticity and how we were meant to be together. The detective says Anna and I are being placed in protective custody separately, that we can't have contact right now while they investigate. A social worker appears with paperwork and warm blankets and tells me I'm safe now, that no one can hurt me anymore. They walk me out to a CPS vehicle in the hospital parking lot, and I see Anna being led to a different car on the other side of the lot. She looks back at me with this expression that's half pleading and half furious, like I've betrayed everything we could have been together. I have to look away because I can't save her from herself, can't make her understand that what she wants would destroy me. They put her in one car and me in another, and I watch through my window as her car pulls out heading east while mine goes west. The last thing I see before we turn the corner is Anna's face pressed against the glass of her window. Her mouth is forming words I can't hear, and her palm is flat against the glass reaching toward me. I know she's begging me to change my mind, to choose fusion over separation, to want what she wants. Tears are streaming down her face and she looks so desperate and lost. I press my own hand against my window, but I don't mouth anything back because there's nothing left to say. Our cars drive in opposite directions and I watch until hers disappears around a corner. The social worker in the front seat glances back at me in the mirror and asks if I'm okay. I nod even though I'm not sure what okay means anymore. My twin sister wanted someone to cut us together forever, and I had to call the police to stop it from happening. That's not something you just get over. The social worker introduces herself as Mercedes Murphy, and I almost laugh at the coincidence because the doctor who exposed us was also named Murphy. She says no relation when I mention it, that it's just a common last name. Mercedes explains that I'm going to a temporary foster placement while CPS investigates everything that happened. There's a no-contact order between me and Mom, and only limited supervised contact with Anna for now. She lists off all these rules and procedures and court dates, and I sit wrapped in the hospital blanket just nodding to everything. My brain feels like it's full of static, like I can't quite process that I'm actually safe now, that Mom can't reach me anymore. Mercedes pulls into a parking lot of a plain office building, and we go inside to a room with comfortable chairs and boxes of tissues on every table. She sits across from me and goes through more paperwork, explaining my rights and the foster system and what happens next. I sign things without really reading them because I'm too exhausted to focus on the words. She asks if I have any questions, and I shake my head. All I can think about is how Anna looked in that car window, how she's probably in another office just like this one being told the same things, how we're finally actually separate for the first time in 8 months. 2 days later, I meet with a forensic interviewer in a different office with cameras in the corners. She's young with kind eyes, and she explains that everything we talk about is being recorded for the investigation. She photographs my injuries again even though they're already documented, getting fresh pictures of how the burns are healing. I describe the glue routine in detail, every step of how Mom would press our skin together each morning, and how it would burn and pull all day. I tell her about the performances at conventions and on TV shows, about the money Mom collected, about the donations people gave thinking they were helping kids with a real medical condition. When I get to the part about the Mexico surgery plan, my voice cracks, and the interviewer hands me tissues and tells me to take my time. She asks about Dr. Rena Murphy, and I explain how she exposed us at the charity gala, how that's what made Mom panic and plan to run. The interviewer makes notes and says, Dr. Murphy already sent a statement to CPS about her concerns from my email. Watching the official record build feels like watching a wall go up between me and Mom, brick by documented brick. Each photo and statement and report is another layer of protection, proof that what happened was real and wrong and can't be undone or explained away. A week after everything fell apart, I meet my children's attorney in her office downtown. Her name is Viviana Murphy, and I actually laugh out loud when she introduces herself because that's 3 Murphys now. She smiles and says it's a common name in this area, that she gets that reaction a lot. Viviana explains that she represents my interests in the court proceedings, that her job is to make sure my voice is heard and my rights are protected. She goes through the upcoming hearings and what to expect, using simple language and checking that I understand. The big thing she keeps emphasizing is that I get to have a say in what happens next, that my opinion matters in the legal process. I've never had a say in anything before, and I don't know how to hold that kind of power. When she asks what I want, I just say I want to be safe. I want Mom to stay away. I want to not be glued to anyone ever again. Viviana writes it all down and promises to fight for exactly that. The online harassment starts getting really bad around the same time. People who followed our story are posting comments calling us freaks and scammers, demanding refunds for their donations, saying we deserve whatever happens to us. Someone finds photos of me and Anna from before the gluing started and posts them everywhere with cruel captions. Mercedes helps me log into all the old social media accounts Mom controlled, and we disable them one by one. The comments calling us frauds disappear along with the photos of us glued together at conventions and on talk shows. Watching it all vanish feels like shedding a skin I never wanted in the first place. Mercedes explains that my privacy is protected now, that I'm a minor and the court records are sealed. I'm allowed to just be a person no one's performing for, no cameras or audiences or strangers asking invasive questions. The relief is so strong it makes me dizzy. Mom's bail hearing happens 3 weeks after the motel. Mercedes takes me to the courthouse and we sit in the back row while the judge reviews the charges. Child endangerment, fraud, attempted kidnapping across state lines. The prosecutor stands up and lists all the evidence, the photos of my injuries, the medical records, the donation fraud, the Mexico surgery plan. Mom's lawyer argues that she's not a flight risk, that she has ties to the community, that she needs to be out to prepare her defense. The judge listens to both sides and then releases her with a GPS monitor and strict no-contact orders. She can't come within 500 feet of me or Anna, can't contact us directly or through other people, can't leave the county. But she's out there somewhere in the world again, wearing regular clothes instead of jail scrubs. The prosecutor tells Mercedes they're building a strong case and ordering psychological evaluations. I sit in that courtroom and watch Mom walk out the side door with her ankle monitor visible under her pants, and part of me still expects her to come take me back somehow. Mercedes places me in a temporary foster home the next day. The foster parent is a man named Matthias Bowers, who has a quiet house in a neighborhood with trees and sidewalks. He shows me to a guest room that's small but clean, with a bed and a desk and a window that looks out at the backyard. The important thing he shows me is the lock on the inside of the door. He demonstrates how it works, a simple flip lock that I can engage from inside the room. He tells me I'm allowed to use it whenever I want, that my privacy matters here, that this space is mine. I nod and set my bag down on the bed. That first night, I lock the door and lie down fully dressed because I'm still not used to the idea that I'm allowed to relax. I keep expecting Mom to burst in, or Anna to appear at the window or something to go wrong, but nothing happens. The house stays quiet and Matthias doesn't bother me, and eventually I fall asleep. I sleep for 12 hours straight, the deepest sleep I've had in months, maybe years. When I wake up, the lock is still engaged and the door is still closed and I'm still safe. That's when I start to believe that maybe this is real, that maybe I actually got away. Mercedes sets up my first therapy appointment for the following week at an office downtown. The therapist's name is Pilar Aldrich, and she specializes in abuse recovery according to the paperwork Mercedes gives me. I sit in the waiting room picking at my fingernails until a woman with gray streaks in her dark hair calls my name. Her office has soft lighting and a couch with throw pillows, and she gestures for me to sit anywhere I want. I choose the chair farthest from the door because I need to see the exit. Pilar asks me to tell her what brought me here, and I start describing the glue routine, how Mom would press our skin together every morning, how it burned and pulled and left scars. I'm talking faster and faster, and then suddenly I can't breathe and I'm crying so hard my whole body shakes. Pilar hands me a box of tissues and waits while I sob into them. She says what happened to me wasn't my fault, that I survived something terrible and I'm allowed to fall apart now. The permission to cry makes me cry harder until my throat hurts and my eyes are swollen. We sit there for 40 minutes and she just lets me talk and cry, and she doesn't try to fix anything or rush me through it. When the session ends, I feel wrung out, but also lighter somehow, like I've been carrying a weight I didn't know was there. A few days later, Mercedes takes me to meet with a school counselor named Natasha Klein, who's coordinating my return to classes. Natasha has short red hair and glasses, and she spreads papers across her desk showing the accommodation plan they've put together. She explains that the school administration knows I need privacy protections, but they don't have the details of what happened to me. I get to control my own story and decide what to share and with who. The teachers will know I've been through trauma and need flexibility with deadlines and attendance, but nothing more specific than that. Natasha asks if I have questions, and I say I'm scared of everyone staring at me or asking where I've been. She nods and says that's normal, that we'll start slow with just a few classes and build up gradually. The idea of sitting in a classroom with other kids who don't know what happened to me feels both scary and weirdly normal, like maybe I could just be a regular student instead of the girl from the news. Natasha gives me her direct number and says I can text her anytime if I'm overwhelmed or need to leave class. Having an escape route makes the whole thing feel more possible. That night, Mercedes calls and asks if I want a supervised visit with Anna. My stomach drops at the thought of seeing her again. I tell Mercedes only if there's a therapist present and clear boundaries about what we can discuss. I'm not ready to hear Anna beg me to reconsider the surgery or tell me I'm betraying her by choosing separation. Mercedes says that's completely reasonable and she'll set it up with strict guidelines. She reminds me that I get to set the terms of contact, that protecting myself is allowed and even encouraged. The validation feels strange because I'm so used to Mom controlling every interaction Anna and I had. Making my own choices about when and how to see my twin sister feels powerful and scary at the same time. The visit happens 2 weeks later in Pilar's therapy office. Anna sits on the opposite end of the couch from me, and Pilar sits in a chair between us like a referee. Anna looks thinner than I remember, and there are dark circles under her eyes. She starts by apologizing for not understanding how much I was hurting, how trapped I felt by Mom's plans. But then she shifts and says we could still be together the way she wants if I'd just give it more thought. She brings up the surgery and says it could still happen when we're 18 if I'd wait and think about it seriously. Her voice gets desperate and pleading. I feel my hands start shaking, and I tell her I will never choose that I need to be my own separate person. Anna's face crumbles like I've hit her, and she starts crying and asking why I don't love her enough to stay connected. Pilar intervenes and says we need to end the session because Anna is too upset to continue productively. Anna leaves still crying, and I sit there feeling guilty and relieved in equal measure. Pilar reminds me that I made the right choice by being honest about my boundaries, even though it hurt Anna to hear it. A few days later, my children's attorney Viviana calls with an update. She has the same last name as Mercedes, which made me do a double take when we first met, but they're not related. Viviana explains that Anna's therapist has recommended no unsupervised contact between us for now. Anna needs to work on her codependency issues and her identity as an individual separate from me. The therapist thinks continued contact while Anna is still fixated on fusion would be harmful to both of us. I feel this wave of relief wash over me, but also guilt like I'm abandoning my twin sister. Viviana must hear something in my silence because she says choosing myself isn't abandonment, that I'm allowed to prioritize my own healing. She reminds me that Anna is getting professional help and support, that I'm not responsible for fixing her. The guilt sits heavy in my chest anyway because we've been together our whole lives, and now we're being kept apart because of how twisted everything became. The prosecutor Christopher Norton reaches out through Viviana to discuss Mom's case. He's offering Mom a plea deal to avoid going to trial. The terms include full restitution for all the stolen donation money, mandatory therapy sessions, parenting classes even though she'll never parent us again, 5 years probation, and maintained no contact orders with me unless I consent to contact. If Mom refuses the deal, they'll take her to trial for child abuse, fraud, and attempted kidnapping across state lines. Christopher wants to know how I feel about the plea versus a trial. I tell him through Viviana that I just want it over, that I don't need to watch Mom go to prison as long as she can't touch me again. The thought of testifying in court and having Mom's lawyer question me about everything makes me feel sick. Christopher says he understands and he thinks the plea deal provides good protection while sparing me the trauma of a trial. He'll recommend Mom's lawyer accept it. 2 weeks pass and then Mercedes hands me an envelope that came through Anna's therapist. Inside is a short note in Anna's handwriting that just says, I miss you. I'm trying. It's the first communication we've had in weeks that isn't about the surgery or fusion or being physically connected. Just sister to sister, simple and honest. I stare at the note for a long time and then I write back, I miss you too. Keep trying. I give it to Mercedes to send through the proper channels. It's not forgiveness and it's not reconciliation, but it's something small and real between us. A thread of connection that isn't about Mom's plans or Anna's fantasies of permanent fusion. Just two sisters who are figuring out how to exist separately after spending their whole lives being forced together. I start building small routines in Matthias's house that are just mine. Every morning I put aloe on my scars in the bathroom, the same way Anna used to do, but now I'm doing it for myself. Pilar gave me a journal and I write in it before bed about what happened during the day and how I'm feeling. I take a walk before breakfast around the neighborhood, just to feel the space around my own separate body, the way I can move without being attached to anyone else. The routines are tiny acts of claiming my individual life, of being just me instead of half of us. Some days it feels good and freeing and I walk faster and smile at strangers. Other days it feels lonely and wrong, like I'm missing a limb, and I have to remind myself that the loneliness is better than the alternative. But it always feels like mine, like choices I'm making for myself, and that matters more than whether it feels good or bad. 3 months after the motel incident, Mercedes tells me they've found a longer-term foster placement. The temporary arrangement with Matthias was only ever meant to last a few months while they sorted out the legal stuff and found somewhere more permanent. The new family has experience with kids who've been through trauma, and they understand about therapy schedules and bad days. They respect privacy and boundaries, and they know I need stability and safety more than anything else. Mercedes drives me to meet them, and their house feels calm and structured with clear rules posted on the refrigerator and separate bedrooms for each kid. They have 2 other foster kids who are younger than me, and they seem happy and settled. The parents ask me questions about what I need to feel comfortable, and they listen to my answers without interrupting. I agree to move in the following week, and Mercedes helps me pack my stuff from Matthias's place. Mom's plea deal gets finalized in court on a cold morning in November. Mercedes takes me to the courthouse, and we sit in the back row of the courtroom while the judge reviews the terms. Mom stands at the defendant's table with her lawyer, and she looks smaller somehow, diminished without her camera and her plans and her control over us. The judge reads through the plea agreement out loud, including the no-contact orders and the restitution payments. He asks Mom if she understands and accepts all the terms, and she says yes in this flat voice. The judge makes it very clear that any violation of the no-contact order will result in immediate jail time and revocation of probation. Mom signs the papers, and I watch her hand move across the page from where I'm sitting 30 feet away. Something releases in my chest. Not forgiveness, because I'm not anywhere near that, but the knowledge that the legal system has built a wall between us that she can't cross. She can't show up at my school or my foster home or my therapy appointments. She can't call or text or send messages through other people. The law has created the separation I needed, and for the first time since the motel, I feel like maybe I'm actually safe. Mom leaves through the side door with her ankle monitor visible under her pants, and I don't watch her go. I just sit there with Mercedes' hand on my shoulder and breathe. A few weeks after the courthouse, Pilar suggests I might be ready for supervised letter exchange with Anna through our therapists. The letters come in sealed envelopes that Pilar opens and reads first, to make sure they follow the rules about not discussing surgery or fusion, or being physically together. Anna's first letter is 2 pages long and talks about her art therapy sessions. She says she's been painting abstract shapes in blues and greens, and her therapist thinks it helps her process feelings without words. I write back about thinking I might want to study psychology someday, about how understanding why people do things feels important now. My letter is shorter, just 1 page, but Pilar says that's okay. The letters keep coming every 2 weeks, and we're learning to be sisters across distance instead of fused at the hip. Anna writes about a book she's reading, and I write about a movie I watched with Matthias. We're building something new that doesn't require our bodies touching. 4 months after everything fell apart, I'm settling into my new foster home with the family who has experience with trauma. I wake up at 7 and put aloe on the faded scars on my ribs before getting dressed. I eat breakfast with the other foster kids and pack my lunch and walk to the bus stop alone. At the school, I sit in history class next to a girl named Jamie who doesn't know anything about my past. My teachers see me as just another student who sometimes needs extensions on assignments. I have friends who invite me to hang out after school, and I go sometimes when I'm not too tired from therapy. Some nights I still dream about the glue burning my skin and cameras flashing in my face and Anna's hand gripping mine until my fingers went numb. But I wake up in a room with a lock I control, and I check that the door is secure, and I'm in a body that's only mine. I get up and brush my teeth and make my bed and move forward separately and finally safe.